All right, so 5-4, what is this? Part 3, I think. Yeah, part 3, because we had the GCF, then we had factor by grouping. So this is kind of like the review of both of those sections. So it says factor completely. Now these are what the problems are going to look like. On your test, I did tell you what I wanted you to do, whether I wanted you to factor out the GCF. We're still in the other one. Those are like next week's goals. So whether I wanted you to factor out the GCF or if I wanted you to factor by grouping. All right. So up here, first thing I'm going to do is I'm looking at the 24 and 36. I notice 24 and 36, they both share a 12, right? You guys see that? X squared, and the 36 doesn't have an X. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to factor out that 12. All right. So if I pull a 12 out, that leaves me with 2x squared minus 3. All right. Do you guys see that? Pretty straightforward, Leah. Pretty easy. All right. Number 2. I noticed 4 and 6. They both share a 2. They also both share a U and a V. So I'm going to pull out a 2UV. 4 divided by 2 is 2. U divided by U, they cancel. V divided by V, they cancel. Plus 6 divided by 2 is 3. U squared divided by U is U. V squared divided by V is V. We're done. All right. Number 3. Justin, this goes towards what you were saying last week with like, oh, would you ever factor out a negative number? Do you remember that? In number 3, I would factor out a negative number. The reason for that is where we're going in 5-5. We want that first term to be positive, and we want it to be 1 if possible. So up here in number 3, notice that's a negative 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to factor out a negative 1. And that flips all of my signs. And that is much better for me to deal with. Okay? This is your question was a great question because it was leading us towards what we need to be doing in 5-5. In question number 4, this is the factor by grouping. It's kind of easy to notice factor by grouping. You're going to have like 4 terms, okay? And in the other ones, you only have like 2 or 3. So here, I'm going to group the first 2 together, and I'm going to group the last 2 together. In the first 2, I notice they both have x's. So I'm going to take out an x cubed. That leaves me with x plus 3. Do you see that, Jay? Are you lying to me? You sure? Okay. Then what is the negative 2x minus 6 share? A negative. What else can go into 2 and 6? 2. So I'm going to factor out a negative 2. That leaves me with x plus 3. Now, Jay, if we only factored out a negative, what I want you to pay attention to is this wouldn't have been the same as this. And that doesn't help me. All right, factor by grouping, what's in the parentheses needs to be the same. Justin? No, because this isn't factored yet. Okay? So what factoring means is I have something times something else. This is a sum and a sum. You know what I mean? Like this is one term and that's another term. But when I factor this out, I have x plus 3 times what's left. That is a factor. Do you see the difference? Now, with number 5, notice they both have x's, okay? So I'm going to take an x out, and I'm left with x squared minus 16. But here's where we're going. All right. That's not completely factored, right? This is a special product, right? It's the difference of squares. Do you guys remember that? All right. It was one of those patterns I was telling you guys about. Now, this is a great lead-in question to 5-5, right? 5-5 is all about factoring quadratics. This x squared minus 16 is a quadratic, okay? What's missing in this? We have an x squared and we have a constant, but we're missing that linear term. Do you guys see that? Do you guys see how we're missing this term right here? Do you guys see that? Now, here's the thing. In 5-5, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at negative 16. All right? So let's think about this. Let's look at negative 16. What are the factors of negative 16? 4 and negative 4. Now, why do I like 4 and negative 4? Now, they're not the only ones, so I'm going to write up the other ones. So why do I like 4 and negative 4? Well, let's think about it. What does 4 plus negative 4 add up to? 0. And look what that middle term is. 0. So when we're dealing with these, this piece can actually be factored further, but not because it's the difference of squares, but just because it can be by what we're going to be doing next. So this piece can actually factor to x plus 4 times x minus 4 times x. All right. Now, I want you guys to pay attention to this. What did I do? I focused on that last term. Do you see that? That constant term, that negative 16. And I looked at the factors of negative 16. All right. And the one I chose was 4 and negative 4 because they added to give me that middle term. Okay. Even though it wasn't there, it was because it was 0. There was no middle term. So in 5-5, all right, we're going to be talking about factoring. Was there a number 6? Oh. I'm done. I'm moving on to the next one. I like the next one better. All right. So in 5-5, all right, I am going to be talking about what are the factors of my constant term that add up to my linear term. Okay. Now, why is it that way? Why am I doing it that way? All right. Well, let's look. Jay, just give me like 2 numbers. Make them small.
2 numbers?
4 and 6. So if I have x plus 4 times x plus 6, right? We would FOIL this. You don't have to write it down. Just follow. We would FOIL this, right? X times x is x squared, right? It's kind of like my first piece, right? Like this piece. X times 6 is 6x, right? 4 times x is 4x. And 4 times 6 is 24. So do you see how 4 times 6, they're my factors of 24, but do you see how they would add up to 10 in the middle? So if I'm asking you to factor x squared plus 10x plus 24, we would start by looking at the factors of 24 that add up to 10. And then you could see that 4 and 6 were my answer. Do you see that, Jay? Do you see how like 3 and 8 wouldn't work because they would add up to 11? And 2 and 12 wouldn't work because they would add up to 14? Now, here's the thing. And this is what I want to use the space for. When factoring, there's some rules, there's some patterns, right? If we look up here, we have a whole bunch of different signs. Let's look at A. The sign is plus minus. B is minus plus. C is minus plus. And F is plus plus. Do you guys see that? There are 4 different patterns. Now, based upon these signs, whether it's plus plus, minus plus, minus minus, or plus minus, will determine what are the factors of my pieces, those parentheses. As in J's case, the x plus 4 and the x plus 6, okay? So here's what we need to write down. X squared plus, we're going to say ax plus b. This factors, notice, I'm only paying attention to the plus and plus. That's all I really care about. All right, see how it's a plus and plus? This will factor to x plus some number times x plus some number. All right. So I can already tell you by looking at f, this is going to be x plus something and then x plus something. All right, just because it's plus plus. Now, if it's x squared, let's say minus ax plus b, okay? This is going to factor to x minus some number times x minus some number. So if b is positive, all right, that means the signs of both my numbers are the same. Do you see that? The b's are positive, the signs were the same. Now, if it's x squared, let's go with plus ax minus b. It's going to be x plus some number times x minus some number. But here's the thing. This number is going to be the big number, and this one's going to be the small number. Because when I add them, my bigger number plus my negative number, which is smaller, that needs to be positive. And the last piece, x squared minus ax minus b, that's going to factor to x minus my big number times x plus my small number. So these are my patterns. Okay? And why am I telling you this, Tanzi? Because now it's just fill in the blank. Okay? You'll see what I mean. I'm going to give you a second to write that down. Lee, did you get it all? Still writing? Kaylee, got it all? All right. So let's look at A. A says x squared plus 3x minus 4. Notice plus and a minus. That's following the red pattern. Do you guys see that? So that means A is going to factor to x plus some number times x minus some number. You okay with that, Cody? Now I know, based upon the rules I gave you, plus minus, well, my bigger number is going to be that positive piece. So now let's look at the negative 4. What are my factors of negative 4? Well, it is negative 1 and 4, 1 and negative 4, and 2 and negative 2. And yes, Jack, because this I heard you ask about it earlier. Why am I repeating the 1 and 4? Well, because 1 is negative, and in the other one, the 4 is negative. So I need to take into account that. Now, Jay, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add these two together. 2 plus negative 2 is 0. 1 plus negative 4, that's negative 3. And negative 1 plus 4, that's 3. I'm looking for the factors of -4 that add up to 3. Do you guys see how it's -1 and 4? Do you see how 4 is the bigger number? See how the 4 goes here and the 1 goes here? See how it's 4 and -1? Do you see that? Isaac, you good with that? All right, let's look at B. Which pattern does B follow, Hansi?
Negative, negative.
Negative, negative. So that is black. Negative, negative. So we have x minus times x minus. Now let's look at this, Hansi. What are the factors of -8 that are going to add up to give me -2? So we have -1 and 8, 1 and -8, -2 and 4, and 2 and -4. The other thing I want you to notice here, Hansi, is notice how I'm going sequentially, right? I did 1 and 8, and I went 2 and 4, right? If it was a different number, I would go 3 and whatever. I try to work sequentially.
Like you always have to follow like one of the 4 patterns.
It always has to follow with these. Okay? You all right with that? Now, I just gave you the patterns. I didn't have to give you the patterns. I did it because I kind of feel it helps out a little bit, right? It gives you a place to start. Okay? Now, here. Oh, this should have been positive. Yeah. So it should be x minus and x plus. So now let's look at this. Which one of these adds up to -2? Well, 2 plus -4 is -2. -2 plus 4 is 2. 1 plus -8 is -7. And -1 plus 8 is 7. So let's see. It's -2. It's this guy right here. The negative number is bigger. So -4 and 2. Do those patterns help you out,
Even
Justin?
if it's like -4 positive, it's just like whatever one's bigger.
Well, see how it's 2 and -4? Do you see how the negative, or see how it's a -4 there? And the 2? All right, I just give you guys these patterns because I feel it gives you a place to start. And then you kind of have to put the 2 pieces together. All right. So I feel once you have a place to start, you're like, okay, I have my groundwork. I know where to go from here. I just have to focus on these. And then it's not like you're really worried about like, oh, well, I know the bigger number needs to be negative. All right. So like, is it 2 or 4? You know what I mean? Like, I feel it's just a little bit more helpful. All right, if we look at C, C is negative positive. That follows the green pattern. So it's going to be x minus and x minus. Okay. And then I'm looking at 6. Now, this is where like having a lot of information kind of hurts you a little bit. This is where I feel the pattern kind of helps. Notice both of these numbers are negative, right? So I'm talking about 6. Typically, you guys are going to think of like 1 and 6, right? I'm not going to talk about 1 and 6 because I know they have to be negative. -1 and -6. -2 and -3. I don't even count in those positive ones because I know my answers have to be negative and negative. So which one adds up to -5? Well, -2 plus -3 and -1 plus -6. Well, that's going to be -7 and -5. So it's this guy. You guys okay with that? All right.
Doesn't matter which way we write it itself.
No. These order matter. Well,
Yeah.
like you can write -x minus 1 first and x plus 4. But like I could just willy-nilly flip-flop that. All right.
Did it for the day one.
Now we got to do D, E, and F. All right. So let's look at D. Okay. Now I don't have anything on the board. All right. X squared minus 2x minus 24. I'm kind of thinking this is going to be an x minus a bigger number times x plus my smaller number. What numbers are going in there? What numbers multiply to give me negative 24, but add up to give me negative 2? What was it?
6, never mind.
6 and 4, right? So negative 6 and positive 4. Now, again, the beauty of this is if you are unsure, FOIL it out. It's not like the tests are like that timed, right? Like you have the time to do that. E. Well, negative positive, right? This is going to be x minus a number times x minus a number. What are the factors of 96 that add up to give me negative 20? What? 12 and 8. Yeah, but remember, if you don't, this is how I do this, Hansi. 96. I know they both have to be negative, right? Negative 1, negative 96. Negative 2, negative 48. Do you see how these numbers are getting closer and closer together? Watch, negative 3 and negative 32. 4, negative 4 and negative 24. 5 doesn't go in. 6. Let's see, 6 goes negative 6 and negative 16. All right, 7 doesn't go in. Negative 8. Negative 8 and negative 12. All I would do is do 96 divided by negative 8. If it's a whole number, I write it down. And then I move to negative 9. Does negative 9 work? No. And then negative 10 doesn't work, and negative 11 doesn't work. So now I got all my lists on. So what I do is now I'm like, all right, I need to get negative 20. Not close, not close, not close, not close. How do I know that? I'm adding the two. Negative 4 plus negative 24. It's going to be big, right? I don't really care what it is. It's not going to be negative 20. Negative 6 plus negative 16? Nope. It's got to be that one. See why it works sequentially now? All right, what are the factors of 9 that add up to give me 3?
Mr.
Or not
Harmon,
3, 6. What was it, Jake?
what for this one would it be we're on F, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I guess you could do 3 maybe.
It is 3. It's x plus 3 times x plus 3. Not bad, right? Any questions? No? All right. Cool. I'm done.